Go.
Welcome everyone to another podcast of Adeel Pirzada podcast. I'm your host, Adeel Pirzada. Today we got another exciting episode. And as usual, I got my co-host here, Mr. Kevin Padillo.
Hey everyone, glad to be here. Glad to support this podcast and glad to support Adeel in his podcast today. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for being here. As usual, today we're going to talk about something, and we're really going to pinpoint something is an issue on a lot of projects. And the idea of discussing that came in because we actually had a meeting with our client, and they're having those similar issues. And it's a big client, we can't disclose a name, but they do a lot of construction work. And it seems like it's a trend in the market, and it's actually an issue for a lot of people as project managers. So today we're going to discuss something about construction really close to that.
For sure. And before we get started, this podcast is proudly hosted by the Pircon Group, Pircon General Contracting, and Pircon Design Group. We provide commercial construction services. We also provide residential services as well. Design, build, project management, all these services we provide. If you want any information, press or click pircongroup.com, Pircon group.com.
All right. Okay, Kevin, let's get into that. So tell me, what do you got for questions?
Awesome. So a little background about the meeting without going deep into, who, what, where, when, why. But so from the high level, we're getting in touch with a huge retailer. Can't disclose the name, but they built massive stores all over the country, and we managed to get in, and have a conversation with them. Our hope was to become a provider on their construction team and see if our team can help with their future builds and renovations. And today we had a great discussion because we learned something about ourselves, and we had a great discussion about something he had talked about. And it's something about the 5%. And I know Adeel could talk more about this, and he can share what his thoughts are on the 5%.
So what it really is, and I think we discussed this about during maybe one of our early on podcast about construction. It's about everybody can start a project, not everyone can finish it. So we see that happening a lot, and we actually have worked on tons of projects like that where actually they were started by someone, and then we ended up coming in and taking over and finishing the project. So more than that, is that it's actually on your own project you could have that issue. So every project you have to design it very strategically that it doesn't happen, because it's a very common thing to happen that you'll start a project and you will finish the majority of it, but there's always something that's left behind that could never get done. It's that one little thing. It could be multiple things that are left behind that never get done. And those are the things actually close the project. And if they're not done, it becomes a huge issue. So talking about that, it's on different projects, there's different things. What it really is, I'll tell you just a little background about like how it actually happens. Like how is it actually kind of goes into the work that it comes to the level where there is majority of the project is done and then there is something left behind. We've seen it different with different projects. We've seen it projects that maybe 95% of them are done and the 5% are left. And then, there are projects that we have seen that 70% is completed and 30% is just left behind. It can't be finished. It just becomes a big headache. The main reason behind, if it's your own project or something you were doing at your home, you'll notice that you have that thing as well. It's the big reason behind that is you're not excited about the project anymore. It's the main thing. Everyone is really excited to get the project started and get into the project. Even for contractors, very common. Like for homeowners, this is the reason, the main reason. But even for contractors too, they'll get too excited about a new project coming in. and they will get on it. Now, every project have challenges and is going to have the hardships, and this is where it goes wrong. So when you can't deal with those challenges anymore, you start giving up, and when you start giving up, that's where the project start going sideways, and you're not really able to finish that. So that is it's the very common reason why it happens. Now, when we're talking about professional construction and commercial, and it happens and happens over and over again, and you're actually at 95% and the 5% is left, that is now that is something a little more deeper and different. That is because your project, the way you had done the things, there is something that left in that sequence that is actually giving you a problem now. So a small example would be a door. So let's say you were to install a door and it wasn't fitting properly when it was first installed, but you try to work around it and try to do something so it works for now. You start putting construction, you keep doing that, you keep putting on stuff on it. You come to the finishing stages. Now, other things have happened and the circumstances have changed a little bit more. I'll give you an example. If door doesn't close properly and you just try to fix it and just make it happen for that time being, one paint or two paint coat later, that door is actually going to have a real big issue. It's not going to close because there's thickness of the paint and other things. Now, you're really seeing those things becoming a problem for you when you're right at the finishing stage. So you look 95% done, and there is a 5% issue that cannot be done unless you actually remove the door or you did something really big. There are things that you can do to minimize that, but that's only possible on the scope itself. So that is the most common reason why you would encounter something like that.
Huh.
Yeah. That is the 5%.
So that's really interesting, like on why people would want to do that. Like, I don't understand why people would lose interest. Like, don't they just want to get paid, or what?
Well,
what's holding them back?
It's the effort that requires. So, I mean, there's so much into it, especially talking about interior construction and why sometimes it just doesn't. When you're putting all the rough stuff, it goes pretty quick, right? And you can't really tell if there is any issues. Like when you're putting framing and drywall, you don't really get to see those deficiencies, those things that could become an issue. So if you don't take care of it, so it also happens, and by meaning of losing interest is that it's costing you more time and effort than you're willing to do something. So if you started your day and you said, I'm going to spend 8 hours to finish this and whatever that item was, and you couldn't, and if you couldn't finish it, you're going to lose your interest. It's going to start giving you a headache, right? You're not meeting your timeline, and it could be several reasons. Wow. Maybe you're not expert on it and you don't know what to do with it. But the other reason could be it just takes that much longer. It just takes that much effort to finish something, and you haven't allowed for that time. So now what? You tried to do something quicker and it didn't happen. Now you're still trying to make that effort and trying to get it done as soon as possible because it's just a painful event for you. And that's where the frustration gets involved. That's where you kind of start losing interest, and it becomes it becomes a sore for you. Like it happens a lot, especially when you're looking for that finishing, that it requires that. It could be anything. It could be your wall just not looking straight. It could be your doors. It could be your trims. It could be your millwork. It could be your drawers. It could be the lighting. It could be the ceiling. So there are a lot of things like ceiling tiles, and they're not getting it right because and let me get this. Those all of those things are fixable. It's very rare that you get into something and you just can't do it. Like you got to just take the whole thing down and rebuild it. That never happens. All those things are little, they're fixable. Unless you have done a real big mistake in your process, unless you miss the big things, the rough-ins. And those are easy to see it. Those are hard to miss. So you shouldn't be doing construction if you're missing stuff in your rough-in stage.
So it sounds like they could be, the last 5% would be fixing deficiencies. Like things that went wrong.
Yeah. So
finishing.
yeah. So it's that.
Okay.
It could be just something that is just not working. Sure, you can call it a deficiency, but
Right.
it's something that was an issue, an underlining issue from the before. It just didn't happen because you came to it, and that's what a lot of people don't realize, that why it happened. So actually, I went back and looked into some of our experience and the projects that we have completed, and just looked at those scenarios, that what it is for us. It's been something that isn't, if there is a gap and it's not really closing and you're just trying to make it happen.
Like in the wall or
Yeah,
something.
and then it's going to give you an issue later, and that come out as a deficiency, but this wasn't taken care in the process, and that's why it would happen. So that's what it's been my experience. And I know for homeowners, for people who are doing construction just for heck of it, now they will start a project, and that's what you see on these TV shows. Like, these wives are so angry, with their husbands because they started something and can't finish. And that's the straight interest. They just lose the interest. They think they can get something done. They start it. It's too hard, takes too long, too much effort. They didn't plan it right. The schedule wasn't right. The money wasn't right. So many things weren't right. And guess what? Now you're losing interest because it's just a sour taste in your mouth. So you don't even feel motivated. That's the big reason. Now, yeah, for some people, it could be like, hey, I don't have the enough money, or I don't have enough time. It's all because what I'm saying right now, because you didn't consider that effort and time before starting. Now it becomes an issue. You can't just get it done. And it's a lot easier to take over something and get it going. Like if your flooring is done and the baseboards aren't, it's a lot easier to still like, hey, you know what? Fine, whatever. I'll just live with it for now. I'll take a look at the baseboard later. And then that's where, that's 5% that you're missing that's not done.
Yeah. So what kind of strategies as we pivot can a project manager do or GC do to solve this issue and close it off?
So in my opinion, this is, you gotta have an eye for it from the beginning of the project and during the project. You just got to be able to, that the good quality of a project manager is to visualize the project as a finished product. And that's what you need. Like, you have to know what is really going to be needed towards the end, so you're all prepared for it ahead of a time. So it's not, because here's the thing, another tip I'll give, right? If you have a project and you finish it, and there is that 5% is left, and it's just it's one of those reasons that I explained, it's going to become a lot harder to finish that too, because things are a lot easier when your entire crew is there, when the right people doing the work, they're there, and you get it done then, right? And that could only happen with a really good planning, with seeing for the things and making sure that those things are done. You could have a trade come do and work, and there was that something that maybe left on your part, and you can finish it, so they couldn't finish it. Now they're gone, and it's going to take you a lot of time to get them back, because maybe they're specialized with their work and they're busy, or it could be any reason. You're going to have a hard time finishing that, closing that gap that was left behind. And that's where the 5% comes in. So there's multiple reasons. I just given the few big ones. And how do you mitigate that? That was your question, Kevin.
Yeah.
By planning, visualizing, making sure that those are the things that could become an issue, and just making an allowance for that. Just do understand that it's going to happen. How are you going to come over that?
Awesome. So visualizing, planning ahead, and having the eye for it. Those are 3 solutions here on how to solve the 5% issue and closing off the project. Today's a quick podcast episode, normally about 15 minutes. Today, it's kind of getting late over here, but we want to make sure we give you value every Friday. We want to thank you all for tuning in. Anything last you want to say, or anything else you want to add, or no?
No, I just would like to just thank everyone for being part of this. And if there is any questions, if there is any comments, do let us know.
Awesome. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Have a great day. This is the Adeel Pirzada podcast.
Thank you. Bye-bye.